Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. A huge welcome to Produce, Mix, Fix, and Conquer. My name is Rich Steve Beck. I'm the admin and also the founder of this awesome community. Feel free to go to facebook.com/groups/produce, mix, fix, and conquer. And feel free to come and hang out on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/produce, mix, fix, and conquer. We've got a fantastic guest coming up for you right now, which is Ryan Fluff Bruce. So Ryan is a videographer, he's an audio engineer, he's a riff overlord, he's also in the band Rest Response and Dragged Under. So please welcome Fluff. How's it going, man?
What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm really good. How are you?
I am. It's really warm here, oddly, but I have a beverage and I'm fairly well. Thank you.
Which beverage have you gone for?
This is actually called Ugly Water, and this is basically, it's sparkling water, but it tastes like Coke.
Okay.
But there's like no sugar. It's like this new. They're a really teeny tiny company, and it's really delicious.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Well, I'm super pumped. I'm on the Monster, so I'm all good to go, man. So
ooh, what time is it there?
The time over here, it's 9 o'clock over here in Manchester.
It's too late for a Monster, man.
You reckon?
It's too late unless you're going to be driving all night to the next show and you're on tour.
Dude, I'm a vampire. I'm an absolute vampire, so I can stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's fine. It's cool.
Dude, 10 o'clock, I'm done.
You're done.
Done.
Fair enough. Oh man, no, thank you so much for joining today, Fluff. We're really super excited to have you with us today. And so really today, like we've done with our previous guests, is to initially start off and talk about your journey, how you originally started off getting into music and learning guitar, and also maybe to have a chat as well about your awesome studio that I can see behind you right now, and talk about some of the gear. Oh man, that's great. Looks absolutely amazing. So cool.
Yeah, man.
Brilliant.
Do you want to start with whatever you want? Where do we start? I don't know.
Let's talk about your journey. So as a kid, what type of music did you start listening to? So we've had a chat before the interview about you were really into the 90s Seattle grunge, but what was the first taste of music that you listened to as a kid?
I remember whenever my mom would go grocery shopping, my father would put on the first Van Halen record extremely loud, and he would put on things like Sabbath records and Zeppelin records and Styx and all, the Who, Hendrix, all those like 70s bands. But the first music that I actually remember asking, what is this? There was a movie called Look Who's Talking.
Yep.
And it was the talking baby voiced by Bruce Willis. The intro of that first movie was a Beach Boys song called I Get Around. And I was obsessed from that moment with the Beach Boys, honestly, because I just blew my mind that people could sound like that. Like with all the harmonies, the 3-part harmonies and stuff. And it was this weird mixture of like Van Halen, Black Sabbath, Beach Boys, and Elvis.
Wow.
Because my mom and my dad did not listen to the same music. My mom really liked Fleetwood Mac and the Cars.
Yeah.
And like she really loved like the first couple of Madonna records. And my dad was like old school 70s arena rock. And that was it. He still does not listen to anything else, even to this day. So,
wow. Yeah. That's a great foundation. So it's so cool, man. Well, what about the music then that you found yourself? What was the first tape or the first vinyl or CD that you ever bought as a kid?
I was gifted for Christmas. I was gifted Sir Mix-a-Lot's Mac Daddy with Baby Got Back on it, which he's from Seattle, ironically. But DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, he's the DJ, I'm the rapper, with like Summertime on it, and like he's just legendary hip hop records. But then the first one I ever bought that I recall, I did some work, and I got $20 from my neighbor, my neighbor's father. We did some yard work around the house, and I got $20, and I was 13 years old, and I got the new at the time Nirvana's In Utero. I believe that was the first CD I ever bought myself. And I'd only heard, everyone had heard Nevermind. Like even at 11 years old, you couldn't not hear Smells Like Teen Spirit. But I knew of Nirvana, but wasn't really familiar with any of that stuff at all. Like I knew a couple of, whatever was on the radio, but I went and bought the new record, having never heard it before, just because I thought the cover was unbelievably cool, and the back, the shot of the live shot of, looking down on the stage, with Kurt and Chris, was amazing to me. I don't know why, but I bought the In Utero record, and I was like, that was the first music that really kind of like really spoke to me, as opposed to me just listening to stuff.
Yep.
Which is something I never did before. I was like, okay, this is for me. Like you start having all these feelings about like the world and all that stuff. And like, yeah, it was In Utero for me.
Incredible. Well, this album right behind me. There you go.
Yeah. So good.
Such a great album, man. Such a great album. So how did you get into playing? Was it guitar? Was that your first instrument that you picked up?
In elementary school, I played trumpet. And,
oh wow! Okay.
My parents hated that shit, and I was really bad at it. And so then, as kind of a way to, I don't know, I guess there was a lot of like my home life was really chaotic, and there was a lot of abuse going on, and there was a lot of all sorts of fucked up shit. But in that, I didn't ever want to leave my room. And so I picked up guitar. I bought my first guitar from my uncle Dennis for $75, and I basically taught myself how to play guitar, listening to Nirvana records and Green Day. The punk rock thing was like really, really like, oh whoa. I was never into the shred thing at all ever. To me as a kid, the shred thing was like the Olympics. Like when I watched the Olympics, I'm like, I could never do that. That's really cool, but that's not something I don't want to run the quarter mile in 2 minutes. Like that's not of interest to me.
Yeah.
But I really like this Master of Puppets song, like that has that chuggy part. Like I like that. So like and at that time, it was the uncoolest thing ever to play solos, which seems weird now, but at that time, like, you did not play solos. You played melodies, and you talked about songwriting and all that stuff. So that's what I was into, was just songwriters and Jerry Cantrell and all that stuff for me.
Fantastic. That's so cool. So you were just self-taught then? Is that pretty much how you?
Yeah, I was self-taught. I took some lessons as a birthday present or Christmas present one year. I took some lessons for. My dad says it was like 3 or 4 months. It doesn't even seem like that long to me, but it was once a week for about 3 months. This guy named David Ferguson, who I just actually tracked down a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, oh my God, Fluff, what are you doing messaging me? And I was like, you were my guitar teacher. And he was like, I'm sorry, I don't remember that, but that's really cool. And I was like, sweet. All right, well, have a great day.
Oh man, good.
Yeah. But good. I took lessons enough to know how to hold it and to hold a pick and to like do the real basic stuff and learn how to like read tab.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm totally self-taught. I've recently, since COVID happened, I took some lessons from a guy named Ben Eller, who's a very handsome man. And he's helped me a lot with understanding fundamentals of like, a little bit of theory and note placement and stuff like that. I'm trying to get better with like my down picking. But other than that, I'm predominantly self-taught most of my life. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. So tell us about, thanks so much for that, Fluff. Tell us about the bands that you started off in as well then, after you learned all the fundamentals on guitar.
So the first band I ever had was a band called Subway Rocket. And if this isn't a precursor to the rest of my life, I don't know what is. But the Subway Rocket was a small Mesa Boogie combo amp.
Oh, wow.
And an ad for it was in the Guitar World that we had at the practice space when we were trying to think up of a name.
Mm.
And so we played a few shows. We played a high school talent show, and then we actually played real legit paying shows and gigs all over the Northwest as high school kids. And then we broke up, and then my first actual like real serious band like that we knew what we were doing was called All in All, and we were like a hardcore fast punk band. We were really political, and we used to like hang an upside down flag behind us, and like we were like our singer used to get bloody noses like diving into the pit, and like we were fucking mad, and we were fast, and it was pretty cool. That band was a lot of fun, and then I had my daughter, and I didn't play in a band until 4 or 5 years later.
Wow, really? No way.
Yeah, and then I started a band, or I didn't start a band. I joined a band called As Fate Would Have It, which is so the band I was in, As Fate Would Have It, actually we were playing around. We played the main stage of a show called Taste of Chaos, which is basically an indoor Warp Tour. We played with My Chemical Romance and Killswitch Engage and like all these other bands, and our guitarist ended up disappearing. I've actually never talked about this publicly, but it's fine now.
Cool.
No, he disappeared for like a decade.
Wow.
And Discovery Channel came out, and like they made an episode of a show called Disappeared about it, and they have actors playing me and shit, and like the Huffington Post was bugging me about like where he was, and like he was my roommate and best friend. He disappeared. The band broke up after moving down to California, recording a record at Sound City. And then after that, I was homeless, and I moved back home from Los Angeles to Seattle.
Yep.
I started working on cars like I used to, and I was a professional auto mechanic and raised my daughter and ended up working at Boeing until 2015. And that was when I got divorced and got fired from Boeing the same month. And I decided to do YouTube full time, and that has led to me starting Rest Repose with Jared Dines, and then that kind of burned out, and then Dragged Under happened, and that's where we're at today.
Wow,
my history.
Man. That's a crazy journey. Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Fluff. Wow, it's just absolutely nuts. I mean, I've been through divorce myself as well, and the whole reason why this channel, PMFC exists, is basically because I realized that because I don't see my son 50% of the time, I thought, why not create a brand new community? And that's how it's grown over that period of time as well. So it's just when you go through shit, when you swim through shit, man, it's just like, if good stuff happens, afterwards, then it's great. But
for sure.
So cool that where you're at now there, man. Just absolutely loving that, loving your studio as well, and loving your channel as well. It's absolutely fantastic, man. It's so
great.
Thank you very much. Tell us about your first taste of a studio then. So you mentioned obviously about the bands that you were touring around with, like when you when you were fairly young, but tell us about the first taste of a studio and what that was like.
Okay, so I did have one recording experience with my Uncle Mike, who's the youngest brother to my father. And he was actually a pro mastering engineer, and he ran a mastering studio for a while, years ago. But my first actual studio experience was actually where I live now, not too far from where I live now in Tacoma. All in All, that political punk band went to record a proper record.
Wow.
And we recorded with one of the guys that was in a grunge band called Seaweed. And they had that video that was a parody of the Soul Asylum Runaway Train video, but it was about missing stolen bikes instead. It was awesome. And Seaweed were an incredible band. We recorded with Clint from Seaweed, and we recorded on Rage Against the Machine's old console that they used for the first record in their practice space. And that was really, really cool. It was a real small studio, and it was old, and it was fucking awesome. And it was all on tape at this time. This is 1990. This would have been 1998, 1999-ish. And that was a really, really cool experience. We banged out an entire record in 3 days.
Wow. So did you learn a lot? Were you actually back then, were you looking at all the outboard gear that they were using in the studio and all the tape stuff and how they actually cut tape? Did you actually take any of that in, or were you just more
No,
excited to actually make the music yourself and just let all the guys
no.
around you do their thing
Yeah,
in the
we
studio?
were we were I was 18 and I was concentrating really hard about just playing the best that I could. I
Yeah.
remember it was a Soundcraft desk. I think it was Genelec monitors, and it was really, really bare bones. I don't remember any outboard gear at all, to be honest with you.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't think there was anything in there. But the room sounded great, and I got to mic up, or we mic'd up. You know, I had a Mesa Boogie 412 cabinet that belonged to our singer, and I had a Fender Rock Pro 1000 solid state head and a Boss Metal Zone with a Gibson
Nice.
SG, and it was fucking awesome. I still had the demos on my SoundCloud, and they sound great. So yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, it was fun.
So I'll have to have a listen, man. I'll have to have a listen. It's really cool. Did you actually get the Metal Zone to sound good? Everyone struggles to get the
Mhm.
Metal Zone to sound good. Is,
Yeah,
is, is there a sweet spot?
there is, and I don't remember specifically what it was, but I do remember for the first half of the record, I used my old 90s Strat with the DiMarzio Super Distortion in it, and it
Mm,
sounded okay. And then our singer had this Gibson SG, and it was like a vintage, like reissue, 60s reissue SG. And the pickups were substantially lower output, but that really added to the gain floor of the Metal Zone. It really brought the gain back.
yeah.
And it sounded incredible. I couldn't believe it. It was just like, dude, this combination is unbelievable. And the engineer was like, we're using that setup for like the rest of the record. We're like, okay, that's fine. And it sounds so good.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
so cool. So tell us about thanks for that, Fluff. Tell us about you mentioned in previous interviews that you do or have done like artist repping as well. So was that about the time that you started artist repping? Is that right?
No, I started artist repping. So fast forward to the YouTube channel. I started posting videos in May of 2000 or April of 2011.
Okay.
So like, 10 years had passed since that,
Yeah.
the All in All record. But I really wanted to get into the music industry, and the YouTube channel had like 3,000 subs or 4,000 subs. And I would write these companies going, hey, if you need any help, or, whatever. Or I would do demo stuff with them and get to know the reps. And then they would mention, hey, if you know anybody that wants like a customer service job or anything, let us know. And I'm like, well, I'll do it. So at one point I was working at Boeing at nights. So I was working from like 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. I was trying to do the YouTube thing. I was artist rep for Evertune Bridges. I was artist rep for Two Notes Audio Engineering, and I was answering customer support emails at Positive Grid all at the same time while trying to do my own shit. Just I was so busy, and it was horrible. It wasn't great.
But how many years was that over then? Was it a period over about 4 or 5 years or so? Was it that you were working for Boeing and doing everything else as well at the same time and just building shit up?
Yeah, so I started Boeing in 2007, but the video started in 2011. From 2011 to 2015, I had various of those jobs.
Yeah.
But those were the most I had at the same time. But sometimes it would be, oh, and then after those went away, I was the rep for JST plugins while working at Boeing. Actually, no, that was after I stopped working at Boeing. But anyway, I was all those reps. I quit. I got fired from Boeing, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do this YouTube thing full time now and just dedicate myself. So I cashed out my retirement fund of like, I ended up with like $27,000 from 50,000 because of early withdrawals because I'm not old. Well, I am old, but not old enough.
No.
And I just lived off of it for like a year, trying to do the band. We did Rest Repose with Jared while trying to do the YouTube thing, and that was my life overnight. So suddenly, like literally overnight, I went from working a day job and being married to being in an empty house with no job and a video camera and a guitar. I was like, okay. And it was like total life shock. And yeah, it was fucking wild, dude.
Wow, that's absolutely crazy. It's so cool that you took that leap as well, though, to be fair. So I bet it was it quite scary at the time, taking that massive jump from what you've known or what you knew over those few years at Bowing and doing all those different jobs. You know, what was it that suddenly made you think, right, okay, I'm going to do this YouTube thing full time? Was the YouTube channel starting to really grow at that point as well, that you felt that it was the right time, or was it just a leap of faith, would you say?
No, no. It was a total, well, if I'm gonna if I'm gonna fail at something, I'm just gonna fail at doing what I want instead of doing what I don't want to do, which is like work an office job. But no, it was a complete leap of faith. The channel at that point, I believe, I think I had 65,000 or 70,000 subs. So like it was something, but I definitely wasn't making, I think I was making like $250 a month off the AdSense.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
I wasn't making anything. So it was just a total like, oh my God, here we go. Crash and burn, because I had a mortgage payment still. I had a car payment still. I had a daughter. Like, oh fuck. Like, yeah, I was nervous shitting for like 3 months.
Wow. Well, when did it all start? When did things start picking up pace then? When did you suddenly go, right, all this time and energy and taking this big risk, it's now starting to pay off? What moment was it that you suddenly noticed that things were starting to take off in a big way?
Honestly, so after I went totally full-time YouTube, I got the artist rep job for JST, and that kind of financially bridged the gap that I needed it to bridge.
Yeah.
So there was some stability, right? Because even now, like, you know, from month to month, what you have coming in from YouTube varies pretty widely.
Yeah.
So you never know what you were going to get paid from month to month. But really the turning point was when I just started doing it full time. I was then able to do the kinds of videos and the amount of videos that I wanted to, and then it just skyrocketed. And a huge credit goes to Rob Scallon as well for helping me and guide me.
Amazing.
And I was mixing his audio at the time, and he was shouting me out, and like I was doing collaborative stuff with him and Jared. We were doing riff wars, and like I was doing stuff for him, and so like really, like, you know, a couple of my friends really just kind of helped me out as best they could, and you know, I just got really lucky by rolling the dice.
That's so incredible, man. Thanks so much for that, Fluff. Tell us about then, so obviously setting up your studio where you're at now is absolutely amazing. But tell us about how you started off in your first studio, and what was the first DAW that you used, and how did all that, you know, come about? How did you start engineering?
The engineering side came from wanting to do the video thing like I wanted to do it. So when I lived in California for a year, in order to make ends meet, I professionally edited porn. So,
wow. No way.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Crazy job.
And I totally lied about it too. They're like, "Oh, you can edit?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can edit. I get to watch porn for 8 hours a day, right? Cool."
Wow.
It was not great.
No.
But fast forward to starting the YouTube channel, I was like, well, I used to edit video, so it can't be that different. And so then jumping into the audio thing, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And there wasn't a lot on YouTube, because now you can go and watch 50 million tutorials. That was not the case back in 2010.
No.
There was no information out there. The information that was out there was all related to Pro Tools. And so, you know, professional setting kinds of things.
Yeah.
I wrote a guy named Ben, who releases music under the name Cloud Kicker. And he explained to me how MIDI drums worked. He was so nice to explain how Tune Track Superior Drummer works and how you use it. It's a plugin. You put this on the tracks and blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So then I just started trial and error doing it myself. The first DAW, I think everyone downloads Audacity.
Yeah.
And then it was Reaper. And Reaper was okay. It was definitely more full featured, but I found Reaper to be real backwards from conventional thought. Like, you know, they call plugins effects. Everything is effects.
Yeah.
And that's just not how my brain works. I don't know. And this was Reaper. This would have been Reaper 2.9, I think, or 2.6. I don't know what they're on now, but
yeah.
And then a buddy of mine that I had met was like, he had a small home studio, and he was like, you should come over to my place and record some stuff for your record you're working on. And he had Logic, and Logic made all of the sense in the world to me. And I still used it to this day. I've tried other stuff over the years. I've tried Studio One, Cubase, just about everything, honestly. But yeah, it was Logic, and then I just fucked up a lot. That's all I did. I just fucked up a lot in learning how to do stuff, and then it's just, yeah, all these years later, here I am. I'm like, okay, well, I know how to not to fuck up, kind of.
Yeah. So that needs to go along. That's so great. As I understand that you mixed and mastered the Rest and Response album, is that right?
The Rest Repose
Rest Repose,
yes.
sorry, album. Yeah. Rest Repose album. Yeah.
Both those, we did an EP, and then we did the full length. I did, and you can kind of hear like this. The Sleep City EP doesn't sound great now, but you know, it was a moment in time. It sounded good at the time, and it was what we were going for. The full length sounds much better, I think. I think it was like 2 years that had passed between the EP and the full length. That was better, but that was still, I don't know. Every once in a while, I'll hear it now and I'll just go, because the guitar tones sound sick, but like the drums don't sound great. And like,
it's all a learning curve. It's all a learning curve, man. Yeah, completely.
It is. It's all a moment in time, really, honestly. So.
Absolutely. But tell us then, so you've told us about the DAWs that you've used as well. As I remember you doing a YouTube video actually on Studio One as well, which is awesome to watch. But really interesting that you've stuck with Logic. Tell us about the studio setup that you've got where you are now. So did you design it yourself, or did you get an acoustic engineer to come in and do it all? How did that come about?
So in my old house, so first I started in a barn. I was in a literal barn.
No way.
When I first started, when my very first video on my channel was made in a barn.
Yeah.
And then me and the wife at the time bought a house, and I was in an upstairs bedroom. And that was the bulk of my videos were made in there. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we bought this house, and I'm upstairs once again. The last place was outfitted by Vicoustic. That's who makes these panels.
Yeah. I
took the panels off, moved here, and basically I contacted Vicoustic because I was an artist of theirs. And I was like, hi, we haven't talked in a while, but I have this room and I have these panels already. Tell me where to put my old panels in this new room. And they basically, how they work is they don't physically come and shoot the room. You have to take very, very precise measurements. And then they build the room in 3D space to then look at all the problem areas.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, these are all placed per the people that make these panels.
Yeah.
And it sounds great in here. It sounds really great.
That's incredible. What speakers are you using there, man? So what speakers have you used, and what speakers do you use now?
Oh man. For my monitors, my desk monitors, I started out with like $99 M audios, I think.
Yeah.
I have used Adams. I've used Focals. I've used JBLs. I'm a big fan of the JBL LSR series, the original ones.
Yeah.
Cali Audio stuff. I've used Yamahas. I've used just about anything in that kind of price range. And then my uncle, who was a mastering engineer, he still works at Microsoft, but he was the audio engineer for, do you remember that Kinect? The Microsoft Xbox Kinect?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So he was the audio engineer for the Connect, and he was in charge of making sure all three microphones worked together and imaged the room correctly. And in
Wow.
order to do that, they had to have a monitor system that had the least amount of distortion possible. Okay, so he had Microsoft money to go and buy and try any monitor that you can get for Microsoft money. So we're talking everything from a $99 M Audio all the way up to $250,000 center channel crazy monitors, and they would have to get 6 of them to try them in each of their 6 rooms, right?
Yeah.
Out of all of those monitors, they spent a year testing monitors. The Neumann KH120s had the lowest distortion coefficient.
Okay.
So they were the most distortion free of any monitor they could find. So he was like, you really have to get some of these. They sound like there's a subwoofer, even though there's no subwoofer. Like, they're incredible sounding. And it's Neumann. I'm a huge fan. I'm talking into a Neumann right now.
Yeah.
So I mixed, and I did a lot of my really, really awesome stuff on Neumann KH120s for a long time. And then I've since become kind of I guess I'm a Neumann artist. And they gave me a set of KH310s when I moved in here. And I have the matching 750 sub. So like I have all Neumann monitoring now. And I have some Neumann headphones and Neumann microphones. And like, I'm a big fan of Neumann monitoring because the way they're tuned really just kind of, I don't know, man. The way the Neumann stuff is voiced really just kind of like that's how I listen and want to hear stuff. It's like an extension of my ears.
Incredible. Well, talking about your ears, we've had a chat before we started the interview. What headphones do you use at the moment?
For these are Jerry Harvey's. I have a bunch of different molded. Actually, maybe I shouldn't be showing this because I just signed an endorsement deal with 64 Audio, but
we'll edit that one out. The
no, it's fine. It's
cool?
totally cool.
Cool.
But these are Jerry Harvey's. I have 64 Audios. The first moldeds I ever had was 64 Audios. I also have some Audis that you're wearing.
Yeah, the LCDXs. Yeah,
amazing. I'm a big fan of high quality listening things, whether it be monitors, headphones, in-ears. Like, the cheap stuff is good for what it is, but like I bought, and I want to point out that I bought these legit, like just like anybody else. Like, these were I think $1,500-$1,600 that I'm wearing now, but they're worth it because this is what I do for a living. So it's easy for me to justify that.
Incredible, man. Thanks so much for that, Fluff. Tell us about the gear that you've got, as in the outboard gear, and also maybe the plugins that you use. Are you do you work in a hybrid setup, or do you tend to use mainly plugins or mainly outboard? How do you tend to roll in the studio with all your stuff?
I guess you would consider it a hybrid setup. And I've only gone to this recently, kind of out of boredom, but really I wanted some sauce, and I was looking for some specific sonic things that I wanted to get out of the plugin realm with. So most of the time I'm in the box running all the Universal Audio stuff, the FabFilter stuff, and like, Soothe 2 and Golfos, and just some real utilitarian plugins. And then with that, I have a Heritage Audio HA73. It's basically a Neve 1073 EQ dual channel microphone preamp, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because I have a guitar cabinet in the other room with a couple of condensers on it. But then I also have, for outboard gear, I have this really, really amazing Rupert Neve Designs Portico 2. It's a master bus processor. It's not the mic pre. This master bus processor is like kind of like the final thing I put on all of my mixes. It's where I do my final bus compression and leveling, and it has this wonderful silk knob that you can add this like high-end silk, and it's just so wonderful. I also have an API 2500 plus bus compressor for things like drums or whatever. And then I have a couple of the Warm Audio 2BQ Pultec clones. I have 2 of those, so I'll use like one on kick and another on bass guitar, a guitar track, or both of them on guitars. I really like them on guitars with the EQ off, but the circuit
All
on.
right. Okay.
So it
Cool.
colors it still, but it's not as colored as it would be with the EQ on. So turn the EQ off, but turn them on. Oh, it's heaven. And they have some new old stock RCA tubes from the 60s in it.
Yeah.
That I put in. That cost more than the units. Hilarious, I know. But but that's it for the outboard gear. But I use that stuff in conjunction and methodically with my other stuff.
Yeah. Incredible. Thanks so much. I use Gullfoss as well. I mean, Gullfoss, man. Samtha, it's absolutely fantastic plugin.
Yeah.
And Oak Sound Soothe as well, man. It's just both those two plugins are just absolutely great.
Lifesavers.
Yeah, 100%. Fab filter as well, though. So I love like the Q3, L2, C2, the Pro MB as well. It's just Fab filter. Just I don't know if you use any Fab filter stuff as well, like with the Q3.
Yeah, most of it. I've Pro Q3. What's the other ones? Saturn 2.
Oh, great saturator. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of saturation is really the key to getting that thing to get it to kind of push and pull and to kind of get depth. Saturation is what's going to do that. So
yeah,
all the Fab Filter stuff is so brilliantly done, though. Honestly,
amazing.
So good. Yeah.
Do you use quite a lot of saturation then on your mixers then when you're mixing the bands that you're in and the bands that you work with?
Yeah, I do very selectively. So I won't put it in one place and then crank it. I'll do a little bit here, a little bit there, and then for instance, I'll have just a little bit on the guitars, a little bit on the bass guitar, and maybe a little bit on the two bus, depending on the situation and like what it is, genre, and with the song and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I like what saturation does. I like how it kind of rounds off, or it can round off certain frequencies in the top end stuff, and it just adds some warmth. I just love that.
Amazing. Well, talking about saturation, I suppose that leads us on quite nicely to talking about guitars and what you're very famous for as well, with your great guitar collection that you've got and all the amps as well. So I know it's like choosing a favorite child, but what are some of your favorite guitars that you currently play at the minute?
I've been really, really blessed to have Ernie Ball Music Man make me some unbelievable guitars. This one I tour with, everyone, I think my fans will know it as Mr. Sparkle, but it's this blue Sparkle Stingray. And originally I ordered it just to kind of be a smartass, because I was like, how funny would it be if I'm like playing like nasty riffs on this bit, this sparkly kind of not, it doesn't look like a tough guy guitar, but playing or making tough guy sounds with it was really funny to me at the time. And it got here and it sounds unbelievable. And I know guitarists like to, their guitars are made of like unicorn tears and all this stuff, but like that guitar on the road has proven itself time and time again. It spent like 4 days in sub-zero in a sub-zero locker or a trailer going to Buffalo, New York, and it wasn't even out of tune from the trip from Chicago. And like, things like that. It's so stable, so reliable, and it has this really wild warmth to it. Don't know why. I recently got a Prs Tramanti guitar.
Nice. Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. I have a 2012. I'm looking at them. I just got a really cool Les Paul Custom from 2012 that turns out to be a pretty rare one, because I bought it thinking it was a black Les Paul Custom, and it's not. It's actually like Oxblood. And they only made them briefly in 2012 with a rosewood fingerboard. I have a really, 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 really cool Ernie Ball Music Man Axis baritone that a lot of people love. That's just like the craziest looking guitar, but those are some of them. I don't know, man. I have a Valentine that has a spalted top. It's just unbelievable. It's so good.
So cool. That's so cool. Well, what about the I'm sure you've heard the stories about the Squire baritone as well, that was
Hmm.
like, I don't know what it was, like $200, $300, that all of a sudden it's worth an absolute fortune now. It's crazy. Have you heard about the Squire that is worth a
Yeah, I
bomb?
have. Well, my buddy Stay Metal Ray, whom you should
Yeah,
absolutely have on the show.
yeah, absolutely,
Um,
man. Love to.
he has one, and he didn't know it was anything like. He just got it because he thought it was cool, and then all of a sudden, like, was it a shortage or something? It's like suddenly you couldn't find them.
I don't know, man.
I
It's
believe that
crazy.
was like suddenly you couldn't get them, and then everyone started going for them or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's crazy. As I've been talking to a couple of engineers recently, so Justin Cortelier and David Karmusky, about different guitars. And in Nashville, apparently, like they know some guitarist in Nashville. I think it was David that's actually, yeah, he's got one of the Squires, and he said he literally bought it just before, if I get the story right, just before it got super popular. And I'm there thinking, well, why don't Squire make more of those? Because they must make they'd make an absolute bomb
Hmm.
from selling all those guitars. It'd be crazy. I love, man, I'm a guitarist as well. I've been, playing guitar for 20 years. I went around a timber yard with one of my friends, and he built me a guitar from scratch. So we
Cool.
literally, we got like a Firebird body, ordered a Fender Jazzmaster neck, like an official one. And we just used one pickup, and it was a triple shot pickup, Seymour Duncan.
Oh
So
yeah,
I don't know if you use one of the triple shots. It's like a P90 single coil and humbucker, man. It's just
yeah.
that thing. And for shits and giggles, we also put a Bigsby on it as well, just for fun, just to make it look a bit different. So we just pimped this thing out. But the other guitar, I don't know, it's around, but I've managed to get hold of it's knocking around here, an Epiphone Les Paul Custom Pro that about, I don't know what they're in dollars, but over in the UK it's about £600 or so. And this guy who works for a music shop, he repairs guitars. The neck was broken, but he's a professional guitar builder and repairer.
Oh,
He sold it to me for £60. And I saw it on Facebook literally within
what?
2 minutes. Yeah, absolutely, man. Within 2 minutes, I said to my other half, I'm like, right, I'm getting in the car. She goes, where are you going? I was going to buy a guitar. She said, no, you're not. I said, £60. She went, £60? Yeah, you heard me. And I fucking just drove, man. And I picked up the guitar, and it plays great. It's a snap neck, but now it's even stronger, I guess, because the
Yeah,
neck's been glued.
yeah.
It's
That's
absolutely
awesome.
nuts.
Wow, deal of the century.
It was a deal of the century, man. It's crazy. Tell us as well about the amps as well. So, do you tend to use real amps on stage, or are you very much like an Axe Effects guy, or Kemper, or
I started out as
Helix?
a reel. I was, with Rest Repose days. I
Yeah,
toured with a bunch of boogie stuff and then some orange stuff. And then as time went on, I got tired of hauling that shit.
yeah,
Like, it's so heavy. Also, the thing, more so than the weight, when you're playing all over the place, you never know what power you're going to get. So, coming, here in the States, you're supposed to get 120.
yeah.
And sometimes we would show up to a club and everyone has to plug into one outlet, and I'm getting 105. And so now my orange rock reverb sounds like a Big Muff fuzz because it's
Wow.
segged out
Yeah,
and it sounds squashy and horrible. I got tired of that because it really bugs the shit out of me when I don't sound great.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I went to 4 cable method Helix for
Hmm.
effects, and then eventually I just went to full Helix when Dragged Under started. Um, and we do run some custom Mesa 212 cabs. We put it on top of the rolling case,
Yeah.
and we amplify them with a Matrix GT Power amp. But we basically split at the Helix and go to front of house in our in ears, and then for ambience and some room volume, we also use the cabinets that are blasting. So it's kind of a hybrid setup, but yeah, it's all digital and it's all solid state and it's all reliable as hell and it sounds awesome. It sounds so good and it feels so good. And I hate
Incredible.
saying that because I love tube amps so damn much,
Yeah.
but I love the convenience of digital. I also really love the Helix, and the folks at Line 6 have been so good to us and so supportive. And when something does happen, when someone spills a beer on your controller, we can call them and just be like, hey, our shit got fucked up. We need new ones tomorrow. And they go, yep. And like, you know, that element cannot be understated. So the digital stuff is lighter, it's faster, and it's just, you know, it saves my back at the end of the day, honestly.
Absolutely, makes so much sense. I actually, my buddy Luke, who I'm actually producing, end of this month. We're going to the studio for a few days, and he's a Helix user. What happens? The volume pedal gave up on him, and on the Helix LT, and it just snapped. And I think he went on the Helix community. So I told him, like, one of the guys that are on there, and they were absolutely fantastic. The customer service was amazing.
Yep.
And they went, look, there's a problem. I think initially with the LTs when they first came out with the volume pedal, and they went, let us send out another Helix for you. He was like, oh, great, fantastic. They sent him out a fucking floor. They sent him out like the full shebang, the proper, like, the one above the LT, and he was just like, they've sent me, like, is this, can I keep this? They're like, yeah, we've upgraded you as well as, so he was just like, that's amazing customer service.
That's pretty cool.
That's really, really good of them, man. So yeah, completely, they're fantastic team over there. So great. Tell us as well then, so with all the amps that you've used as well, what, I know it's hard to choose favorite amplifiers, but what have been, I don't know, like your top 2 or 3 amps that you've used, proper amps over the years as well?
I'm like a super diehard Mesa rectifier guy.
Yeah.
So I love the dual and triple rectifiers, the old ones in particular. Although I do have a modded FJA 3-channel, but that sounds unbelievable. It sounds like a Rammstein record. But I would say the Boogie rectifiers, honestly, one of the best live tones I ever had was a Boogie JP2C. That amp was so easy to just make sound huge. I used to get so many people coming up to me going, bro, what is that? The Rev Generator Mark III 100R, which is, right there.
Yep.
Right there.
Amazing.
That is unbelievable. Also, I'm really loving the Jupiter. I just did a video on this a couple of days ago. Jupiter Effects Omacht, which is basically a Sun Model T, but it's like a handmade, point-to-point, no expense spared for parts Sun Model T. It's 150 watts, 4 KT88 power tubes. It's a fucking monster.
Wow.
Bad Cat, Soldano SLO 100. I don't know, man. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Honestly. I love them all.
Yeah, completely. What about clean tones as well? What clean amps do you like?
A buddy of mine just got a Roland JC120, and that's kind of the classic. I don't know. It's very 80s. That's very, very clean. I'm not into... There's a time and a place for super clean.
Yeah.
I actually really like Fender cleans with that slight... I don't know. I guess there's a little bit of saturation to like a Fender Twin.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Something with a little bit more kick. Orange has a really great clean tone.
They do, yeah.
A Marshall has a really great clean tone. Those kinds of clean tones, which I guess that's basically rooted in a Fender Bassman. But I like a Fender clean. Like a Fender Deluxe, Fender Twin is fine as well. That's what I like for cleans.
Amazing, man. Thanks so much, Fluff. What about, so you mentioned that you used the Helix live for the effects and for some of the amp models as well, but what about effects, as in effects pedals? Do you use any effects pedals on stage or in the studio that you like?
In the Helix, it's all in the Helix. So, but we do use dashes of, like, reverb, EQ, delay. In here though, in the studio, I love like the MXR Carbon Copy. I like a lot of overdrives, a ton of overdrives, fuzzes, Ren and Cuff, Capri, the Electro Harmonics stuff, the Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 13. I want to say Ocean's 11, like the movie.
Yeah.
The Ocean's 13 Verb, the Boss RV6 Reverb. We're really like with my band uses octave stuff a lot, octave effects a lot. So like a whammy pedal has a great octave. The
Yep.
Boss OC5 octave effect is one of my favorites. I don't know, man. I like a lot of like see the Echo Sex is a
Yep.
really great tape echo based on the Benson Echo Rack.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a traditionalist, I guess. Phase 90, the EVH Phase 90, I think is the greatest phaser of all time.
Classic. Absolute classic.
So good.
Absolutely. It's quite interesting. When I was a kid, my first taste of distortion noise was a fuzz pedal. And my dad, I think he lent me this like old crappy like 70s guitar that he still got. And he had like a Jimi Hendrix 1960s fuzz face. So I put that through my dad's stereo. And
Wow.
dude, not even through a proper amp, you know. And it just made a noise. I'm just there going, this is great. And that was my first taste of pedals. But my granddad was a keyboard player, and he had like, what did he have? Like a Roland, Korg, some old 70th synths, and he used effects pedals as well. And it was electro harmonics, trying to remember what it was, but it was a phaser that he had that he used, and it just sounded fantastic. And that was my first taste of pedals. But it's just so much fun. But what do you think about software as well now, like with like STL Tone Hub and all the software that's available that does all the amp modeling without using all of the outboard stuff? Do you reckon they're there yet with all these different software companies? Do you reckon they've done a good job?
The digital stuff is doing a really damn good job. I mean, we
Mm.
did. I mean, just in general, outside of effects, like I have my own plug-in with ML Sound Labs, the amped roots, which we copied
Yep.
just a couple of my actual amps, and I would blind test them with my guitar buddies, and they would pick the wrong ones every time. So I think the digital stuff is getting really, really damn close. I think, as far as effects go, I think digital's been there for a hot minute, with like
Yeah.
things like phaser and delay. You can do crazy shit with delay that you couldn't do in a pedal with digital.
Absolutely.
And I think it's much more accepted in the effects community than it is like the amplifier community. But as far as amp tones and stuff, it's getting so close. And honestly, on a mixed album, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
no one listens to an album and goes, that would be better if they used a real amp. Like, no one cares. If the song is good, they're gonna be singing along to the song, right? Like, however you get there is however you get there, and that's fine by me. Like, I'm not a snob in that way at all. I love digital and I embrace digital.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty close. It's still not 100% there. I don't know if it ever will be 100% there, but it's getting damn close every single year. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Oh, I was going to ask you as well, going back to mixing and mastering. When you're actually when you're working on a mix, how much time do you take out before you approach a master? Because obviously, as we all know, it's two completely different processes. So, do you take like a day out before you go to a master from a mix, or what's your process?
If I'm doing a record, I will get the mixes how I want them, and then I will give myself the day. I'll come back the next day with fresh ears to master.
Yeah.
Typically. With the YouTube demos, the songs, I actually take a totally different approach, which actually just came out. Shameless plug. I just came out with a course about this very thing. It's called The Creator's Guide to Mixing and Recording, or
Awesome.
recording and mixing. But it's based in, I am aware that for the YouTube mix stuff, people are going to be consuming that stuff and listening and watching on the phone.
Yeah.
And so if I am demoing an amplifier, or if I'm demoing an overdrive pedal, I'm not going to spend an hour doing an EQ sweep on the snare like I would on an actual record, right? Like,
Yeah, you're right.
When you're making an actual record, that's the time to really go nuts and really deep dive into the process. But for a YouTube video, no one's going to care. No one's going to care, because I've done that and I've gone down that route. People don't care at all. So I basically I have my template set up so I can record into it, and I can program drums into it, or bass, or program MIDI bass, or whatever I need. And I'm already like 85% there by the time I lay down all the tracks.
Yeah.
And then I will, that 15% remaining is, I will then get the outboard gear out, start tweaking a little bit, and I'll spend a couple hours on that mix, but no more. I will never spend more, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours total, unless it's something really excessive. Like, I'm really trying to get, like, you know, this new guitar amp unveiling tone correct, like, or the new rev amp that has to sound really, really great. So I am going to take the time for the guitar sound. But even then, I'm not going to mess around with the drums for 3 hours.
No, fair enough. Incredible. Thanks so much for that, Fluff. So, yes, you mentioned about YouTube. So, but before you go, any advice? It's not something really on our community, because we've spoke to some incredible, like yourself, some incredible pro engineers, but none really that are YouTubers per se. So, any helpful tips for YouTubers maybe starting out, or maybe like you said, at 3,000 people on their channel, and then, you know, growing their subscription? So any helpful ideas do you think that could help people out?
Honestly, there's always room at the top for the best, and if your stuff is good and engaging, it'll do fine. I think the trap that a lot of people fall into that want to do the creator YouTube thing is they want it now. They want a big audience now. It's like, oh, dude, I've been doing this 10 years exactly. Like yesterday is my 10-year YouTube anniversary.
Wow, that's amazing.
It takes a long time, but if your stuff is good and funny and people just share it, that will work on its own. But collaborating with people is a big one. You know, doing a collaborative video, doing stuff for others that maybe others would have to pay for, that you won't charge them for, whether that's mixing services or anything like that, putting that on your channel and how you mix stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. But just be the best you can be, man. Honestly, as cheesy as that sounds.
It's true, though. It's absolutely true. But there's loads of videos out there about the YouTube algorithm, and I don't know how much of that is a myth or how much is reality. And I don't know what your thoughts are on, like, the YouTube algorithm and how that works. You know,
it's a thing. It's for sure a thing, but I don't think it's the end all for sure.
No,
it's not.
So you reckon it really gets blown out of proportion more than it
does,
more than it should? Yeah,
it definitely does. Although it definitely does have an effect on stuff. But like, if it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
If your stuff is good, then it's gonna be good. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Absolutely, that's so great. Well, thanks so much for that, Fluff. So before you go, so tell us what's next on your awesome journey. So with your channel, and I know that we talked about before you came on the show about your touring as well. So tell us what's next in your world.
Dragged Under goes out with Beartooth and Wage War starting August 14th in Las Vegas, and we go around the country for 6 weeks. Dragged Under's working on a second record, and then I'm just grinding away on the YouTube stuff as per usual, man. That's literally my entire life.
Nice. But dude, you're doing a great job, and absolutely
Thanks,
loving
man.
your channel, man. It's been so great having you on today as well, and really appreciate your time. So
Thanks,
feel free. Thanks so much, dude. So feel free to hang for a moment before we after we end the broadcast as well. But Fluff, absolute legend. Really appreciate today, and thanks for sharing all your epic stories with us, and also sharing your crazy cool, amazing studio with us as well, man. It's been brilliant.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.